Let's talk about what happened during the National Guard shooting near the White House, because this incident has turned into one of the most serious security and political flashpoints of the year. And to understand why it has shaken Washington, we need to look at the attack itself, the suspect's background, the politics that erupted immediately afterwards, and the wider consequences now unfolding. To begin with, what exactly happened near the White House on Wednesday afternoon, two members of the West Virginia National Guard, 21-year-old Sarah Backstrom and 24-year-old Andrew Wolf, were doing a routine high-visibility patrol just outside the White House security zone. It was a normal shift until a man suddenly came around a corner near a metro entrance, pulled out a .357 Magnum revolver, and opened fire without warning. Witnesses said the gunshots came out of nowhere, causing people to run and duck behind cars. Other National Guard members nearby reacted instantly, returned fire, and managed to wound the gunman before tackling him to the ground until law enforcement arrived. The entire area was immediately locked down. By the next morning, President Trump confirmed the devastating news that Backstrom had died of her wounds and Wolf remained in critical condition.
This is a really bad crime. Millions of Americans are praying for those heroes and their families, and I must unfortunately tell you that just seconds before I went on, right now, I heard that Sarah Backstrom of West Virginia, one of the guardsmen that we're talking about, highly respected, young, magnificent person, started service in June of 2023, outstanding in every way. She's just passed away. She's no longer with us. She's looking down at us right now. Her parents are with her. It's just happened. She was savagely attacked. She's dead. She's not with us. Incredible person. Outstanding in every single way, in every department. That's horrible. As you know, the other young man is fighting for his life. He's in very bad shape. He's fighting for his life, and hopefully we'll get better news with respect to him.
Now, when we talk about who the suspect is, investigators have identified the gunman as 29-year-old Rahmanullah Lakanwal, an Afghan national who had been living in Washington state with his wife and 5 children. Officials say that he acted alone, and at this stage, no motive has been confirmed. The FBI searched properties linked to him in Washington state, seizing his phones, laptops, tablets, and speaking to relatives. He had no criminal history in the US, but one detail has become central. He was once part of a CIA-backed Afghan paramilitary force during the war in Afghanistan. This leads to the question of what his background actually was, because Lakanwal's history is now at the heart of the political debate. He was part of what were known as the Zero Units, elite Afghan paramilitary teams trained, funded, and guided by the CIA to conduct night raids and counter-terrorism missions against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. These units were effective but controversial, and many of their members were evacuated to the United States in 2021 after the Taliban takeover. Lakanwal entered the US through Operation Allies Welcome, the emergency program created to resettle Afghans who had worked with American forces and were at risk of Taliban reprisals. He later applied for asylum, which was approved earlier this year. Once we understand his background, we can look at how the vetting process worked, because this shooting has ignited a major political fight over immigration. The vetting of Afghan evacuees in 2021 involved biometric checks, intelligence screenings, and interviews, but the process was extremely rushed due to chaotic collapse of Kabul. Immigration experts have long said that while the majority of evacuees passed through multiple layers of checks, gaps were inevitable because the US had incomplete Afghan civil records, and many people fled with limited documentation. Still, overall crime rates among Afghan evacuees have been extremely low. Yet, this attack has now become the centerpiece of a fierce political battle in Washington. Which brings us to how the shooting is being politicized. Within hours of the incident, President Trump blamed Biden-era vetting and described the gunman as part of a group of unvetted Afghans, even though official immigration files show that Lakanwal's asylum was actually approved this year under Trump's own administration. Trump has used the attack to argue that even legal immigration pathways, including asylum, pose a security risk, and he has announced sweeping reviews of all asylum decisions made under Biden. He also said the suspect's family in Washington state is under review, though no evidence has been presented linking them to the attack. Officials like the FBI director and the US attorney have called the shooting a heinous act of terrorism, but they have not confirmed any motive or ideological link so far. So what happens now? The shooting is already reshaping US immigration policy. The Trump administration has ordered a massive review of all asylum cases approved under the Biden administration, including more than 230,000 people. Afghan evacuees, many of whom live in fear of returning to Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, now face renewed uncertainty about their legal status. Veterans who fought alongside Afghan allies warned that this response risks abandoning people who risked their lives for American forces. Legal challenges are expected, and Washington is bracing for a long fight over due process, national security, and the future of US asylum law. As the investigation continues, the human cost is impossible to ignore. A young woman has been killed. Another remains in critical condition. A family in West Virginia is grieving, and a community of Afghan refugees, many of whom arrived there because they helped American troops, is now terrified of what comes next. For more such explainers, subscribe to DawnNews English.